Well, greetings again. This is Dr. Bill Wyatt with the American Orthodontic Society, and I want to talk to you about impacted mechanics and how we use it. And I'm saying that we use the straight wise orthodontics to do this. This is just a little better than plain straight wire. And I came up with this several years ago. And so I want to go through the mechanics that I worked for years. Even was removing impacted teeth before I got out of dental school. Back when I went to dental school, they let people take out impacted teeth. And I moved to a little town. There was no oral surgeon anywhere close around. I took all the impacted wisdom teeth out. And for about 12 years, I worked with just regular dentistry. And as I went over as a missionary, I took all kind of teeth out like that. And I came up with a method of doing it that I think is the best method going, that you can bring in any impacted tooth you want to. I found only one impacted cuspid that I could not bring it in with this, and it had eaten the root of the central and lateral off about halfway and was laying in the stump, and I could not go in and hook any way to bring that tooth down without losing those two teeth, so I had that impacted cuspid removed. And so that's the one that I didn't do. I'm going to show you now what this mechanics is about it. And it has several things going for it. It pulls the tooth in the direction you want it to go. You come over here with your arch wire and you make a loop in it, something like that. And then you wide the spring on here. If you want to expand the loop bigger, you can wide the spring on this over the loop, and then you make you a hook to go the impacted tooth. And that I usually used a little lid you could put a wire around, and I use a 014 14,000ths soft stainless steel wire, and you twist it down on the hook, and now you go and put that hook on the tooth. You uncover it, and I'll show you several ways of going with it. So the labial, or if it's coming out of the palate, you have to make a hole to where the tooth is, and then you bond this hook, and you just twist the wire up around it, and you bond a hook in it, and you can take this and put a hook when this tooth gets closer. You can squeeze this and make a hook out of it. Then when it gets real close, you put your waxed dental floss on that. Now, you put a spring, you tie a wire here, and I'm going to show you in a minute just how we do that. And then you pull this spring out and find out exactly the ounces that you're going to put on that particular tooth. This waxed dental floss, you put it 10 ounces here, and it'll be just about 10 ounces coming down in this direction. And it needs to be something moving in the direction you want to go, and it needs to be constant, and it just stays with it. And you need to be able to use something that will pull out here in 6 weeks from now or 2 weeks. I see the person in a couple of weeks. This will still have the same force, except if the tooth moves this way, then this will move back, and you won't have quite as much force on it. But you need a constant force and pull it in a straight direction, and you need some way to go around a loop where you won't lose pressure. Now let's go to the next slide. With other words, I'm going to show you about making a spring. Now we take a spring on the inside. We pull this spring here, and we make a loop in this, and now you run your dental floss from this end back and hook it on the impacted tooth, which is up in the palate. Now there's the palate, and this would run over here, goes to this point, and you're pulling it in this direction. And you can change this some by pulling further back if you want to direct the tooth where you're going. You have to rotate it when you get it in. And here's the way we rotate them. You tie half hitch, about 4 lengths of elastic chain on there, and wrap it around the tooth, and come back and hook it into the bracket, wherever the bracket is, but not over the arch wire. And it'll rotate that tooth in this direction. And that's the best way. If your tooth is the slope to it, put a little acrylic back here to hold this line down. That is the best way to rotate a tooth I have ever found. So let's go now. We are pulling this tooth in this direction, and we will rotate it when we get it there. All right, here is the making of the wire. It goes through here, and then we make this loop and bring it back out, and you can wind the spring onto that. Now this is open coil spring, and the spring that you hook up here to pull on the tooth is a closed coil spring. Now there's the little hook that we made. This is coming close. We take that and put a optical pliers or a small point plier, just make a twist in this, and you can pull on this 5 pounds and before it straightens out. And so you're not going to be pulling that hard on the tooth. So, and your dental floss now run from, you have your spring coming over here, and you have dental floss and pull it up to here, hook onto that. Now it looks complicated when you're just looking at it, but if you learn how to do this, it is almost foolproof. And you can bring any tooth I have not found, except 1 or 2 teeth that I didn't want to bring in. Now you've got a rectangular wire coming out here. You run this spring on here to open it bigger if you want to. If you don't need to open it, you just leave that alone. And now you're going to run the spring around the side and pull in that. Now, this is the spring that I used all the time. Now, this has a lumen. The spring wire is 010. The lumen, or the opening of the spring, is 036. So this is 036 or 36 thousandths wide. Now you stick a pointed instrument in there, a gyroback, real fine point, and you bend that down, and you do both ends that way. So you bend it down, and then you go out here. Now we'll bend this one down too. Now, we run a piece of wire, an 012 wire, soft stainless steel in here, and then just tie 1 loop in it and pull it down and tie it so it stays in that point right there. Run wax dental floss in this part of the loop right here. Now we've got this thing lined up. You've got a knot tied in that. So these 2 wires, you're going to wrap around the molar tooth, and you come up here, and you're going to put this onto your hook. So now we're going to hook this to this is a molar tooth back here, and we'll hook this, and we'll pull it out to a certain point where we know, say this is 10 ounces here, and this is, maybe it would be 1 pound if you pull it all the way over here. If you want to put 1 pound of force on it, you can do it with a Dontrix gauge. Now when I get to this place out here, I'm going to take 1 strand of this and go through and come over, hook it on this hook, and come back out, and then go back with this wire. Now I tie this spring onto this. This is the end, this is the second molar or something, and we're going to pull this over this direction now, and I tie this down so this stays on the back side of this bracket right here. So this is going to pull over in this direction with the dental floss. Now, here's a Orthodontics gauge. I think everybody ought to have one of these. In case you can see this, if I push on it, it'll do a pound of force. You get it up here, it's 1 pound. Or if I pull over here, and for every notch, every double notch, it's 4 ounces. It'll give you 16 ounces of force, and that's a lot of force. And so we can tell exactly how much force we're putting on this device. But everybody needs a Orthodontics gauge like that. It's kind of like a fish, weigh what your fish is or something. Okay, now the next thing, this is the pushing in of this. If we want to push this back and measure, now this is 4 ounces, 8 ounces, this is 12 ounces, and this one would be 16 ounces. If you push this in into this ring here, you got it right up here, back to here, it's 1 pound. It would be 1 pound that you would put in there. But I don't think I've hardly ever used anything close to a pound, except in one case, I remember. All right, we'll erase that, and we'll go. Now the other end is a pulling end. You put it here, and you pull it, hook it to something over here, and you pull this back in this fashion, right here, and then now I'm hooking it to that spring. The spring side to right here. It goes to right to that point. So I've got 4, 8, 12 ounces of force. And that's a lot of force on there. Now I'm going to take one strand of this dental floss, go up and hook it on there and come right back out. And now it's 2 together, and I tie a double knot in that. So there we'll pull that up to that, whatever force you want to use in here, and then you hold it there and take one strand of this and run it through the loop, up, hook it over here and come back out. And you've got the 2 then to tie together. Now, in case you wanted to pull with a rubber band, but the patient has to use that. And we put these little teeth eggs on here, and you can put it like this, and this pulls down on the tooth as it pulls these teeth forward. With whatever force this is on this elastic, the bottom teeth would move in the force of that like that. In other words, you can take a class 3 case and move the mandible forward with that to some extent. And now you pull this over here, and it'll pull back on this tooth coming down with the same force you've got on this wire. Now this looks complicated, but it is the most efficient way to pull an impacted tooth to move it into the mouth that I have ever come up with. And I had a typodont with all of this on it. One time I was lecturing in a place where it was a school, and one of my typodont disappeared. And it was in the orthodontic department of that school up in Washington. So it was a lot of work fixing a typodont. Now here you pull this tooth out So the rubber band, if you're going to use a rubber band, and you pull this far enough to where this rubber band would go from here underneath this deal all the way up to here and hook and back. In other words, this part right here needs to be this long over here. And you can tell how much force you've got with that rubber band. But the rubber band will weaken, but so we most all of them just use a spring up here. And if you've got impaction on both sides of your mouth, and you're pulling down with, say, 8 ounces of force, and you got one on the other side, you're doing the same thing. You have 8 ounces over there. There's 16 ounces of force on your maxilla going forward. So you're bringing these teeth down, but you're also pulling these teeth in a forward direction right here. So that's the way you help advance the upper arch. All right. We put this rubber band hook, bring it under here, reach up here. I have to show the patient how to do that. You have to have a little elastic director. It's a little Y thing that you can put the elastic on your hook up above. Or if you're just going with this spring, you take it where you stretch it out. You found out how much force you put it. You go up here, and that dental floss catches it here, and you stretch this out to whatever force you need. Now here it is with a elastic, but I very rarely use any elastic because the patient has to look that up. This, they don't have to do anything except just don't tear it out of their mouth. And it'll bring the impaction tooth to this position right here. And you get it down that close, you can tie anything, bring it around and rotate it. So there's the deal coming here. We're going to run this floss through here, hook it to this wire, and now we'll have the floss going in here, 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 and then coming back over here. And that's what we got the dental floss. We tie that until it pulls this spring to where you get the force that you wanted. Now, there's the spring. We came up here with the one wire, piece of dental floss, hooks it on here, came back out, came down here, and then you got the other one. We put 3 loops in this wax floss to keep it from turning. And I pull out on this piece and pull out on this piece, and it ties this knot. And as you tie the knot, it pulls this up to where you decided how much pressure you want to put on it. And you tie a knot in it, and it'll have just about the same amount of pressure going down there as you have coming in this direction. So there we pulled this up to here and tied it, and we had weighed this with our Orthodontics gauge. We knew exactly how many ounces were on this tooth going down. Now it's pulling down with that force. It'll tend to raise these other teeth up a little bit, but not much. It's this tooth that's going to come down here. Now this is pulling forward on your arch. You put it back here, and it's pulling these teeth together, and it'll pull you forward. This keeps your gap open big enough for the tooth to come through. Now the tooth comes on through, gets down real close, then we'll just go up and hook. When it gets where it touches here, we'll take this floss, hook it around this button. Now if you want to tip the tooth or something like this, say if you want this root to go in this direction, you drop it here, go up here, from here back over. Now when you hook it in that bracket, it'll push that root that way. Now these are 018 brackets, and I use a 0175, so you got a thousandths clearance. So that knocks about a 4 degrees off of your torque. Now there's the dental floss, goes in, double it, hook it in here, and take these two ends and tie them together and pull that spring up to this point. Now I'm going to tie that, and I'll make that spring go to a point where I want the pressure. And we use wax dental floss, and you have to change it about every time they come in. But it's this, I have brought every impacted tooth except 2 that I know of in that way. The cuspids, most of the time they're cuspids. You can bring a molar, bicuspid, or central, or anything in that way. And you can put double, if you want to bring it back at an angle, you can come in back here and elastic. Most of the time I don't use the elastic. Now these are little deals to put out. TP used to have these little deals out of soft stainless steel. You stick them through the slot in your bracket, and you hook onto it. Now this method is tried, and I have used it for years. Don't look at it as if it's an ungodly thing that you can't do. If you start doing it, if you need to open this, you put a lot of pressure on this open coil spring and bring it up. Now this is where we rotate teeth. You hook that on here, wrap it around, and hook it on the bracket. I've got a whole video on rotating teeth. Okay, thank you for watching. And if you do your own impactions, you bring them in, you drill a hole, you open a hole, and I use electrosurge and get down and you find that tooth in there and you clear it out and you go in there and etch that tooth. Make sure your follicle is off the tooth, and you come in and etch that whole thing. And when you bond that deal on, try to get as close to the edge as you can if you put your deal there. Sorry. Okay. I'm going to say goodbye, and I hope if you haven't tried developing this type of device to bring impactions in, that you'll do it. I have not found but 2 of them. I think one of them I just wanted to get rid of it anyway. The other one I couldn't move it down. So I hope that you'll join our group and subscribe to our channel. And I will say goodbye and hope to see you again.